Thank you, Bayu. Very good
Yes,
morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this training. Unfortunately, I'm not I got a flu in the last few days, so it's been. Sometimes when I talk too much, I got sore throat, so I will be accompanied by my assistant Lita here. But basically, because this is an important training that I decided to continue participate in this. Yeah. And the task that is given to me, as it mentioned here, is to share with you what I thought about why collaborative and smart governance matters. Yeah. Especially learning the lessons from Indonesia. Um, yeah, next, Lita. So we will discuss briefly, and later on we can have discussion some of the concepts and theories of collaborative smart governance in urban setting. I just pick a few of them, and I would not belabor too much on the theoretical side because it's more practical is what is important. But then we will discuss also some institutional arrangement, organization platform, and a little bit more in financing mechanism. I don't think we will have time to really discuss in the financing mechanism. But good practices of collaborative smart governance in Indonesia, I think we will discuss in more uh, elaborative way. And also, by the end of the presentations, we will talk about the challenges and some of the way. Next. Okay, so why collaborative and smart governance? This is a big question actually, but it is unavoidable directions. Yeah? While in the past, often government work by itself, more and more the challenges that that are emerging could not be addressed by the government itself. Yeah. So it is important for the government to work collaboratively with other stakeholders, not only the private sector or the civil society, but also the academia and others. Yeah. So we know the terms PPP, for example, in project people public-private partnership, where government work with the private sector and so on. And then expanding working with the civil society. And now we know that the pentahelix and in all of these terms that pointing at the importance of collaborative governance. Yeah. So because of the increasing challenges, more complex challenges, unpredicted challenges and all those things, while at the same time we have limited resources. So it is the government as well as each of the stakeholders has limited resources. So I think it is important then to build collaborative action, starting from actions. Then if it has become a systematic, then we can call it collaborative governance. And then why smart? I think with the emergence of the use of technology, actually in governance, throughout the history, we always use technology. But with the digital technologies coming up, not coming up, digital emerging of the digital technology, then it is important that we use this the potential that it has, that the technology offers for to build this collaborative governance. Yeah. Next, Lita. So from this, one of the reference that we use here is the Ansel and Gash. The governing arrangements where one or more public agencies directly engage with non-state stakeholders in a collective decision-making process that is formal, consensus-oriented, deliberative, and that aims to make or implement public policies or manage public programs or assets. Actually, we can start from small works, but then when it becomes a practice, a systematic practice, then it will become a governance. Next. These are the key criteria of collaborative government, according to Ansel and Gesh. Here, initiated by, they argue that it has to be initiated by the government, although in this matter, I disagree a little bit, because in my experience, sometimes works can start initiated by civil society or by private sector, but then if it then embedded and formalized by the government, then it becomes part of the collaborative government. So initiation, according to this reference, needs to be from the government. But in my argument, actually, it can be from any other stakeholders. But other criteria, I agree, it has to include non-state actors and direct participant engagement, formally organized and meets collectively, aims at achieving consensus and focus on public policies and management. Yeah. So it's not about project, but it's more on public policies and management. Of course, project could be part of it, programs could be part of it, but it's more on management overall. Next. This is the model. Basically, this a bit complicated chart show 4 main variables. The starting conditions, of course, we have to consider the starting conditions where the power relations between stakeholders, among stakeholders matters, yeah. And then institutional design or institutional setup of the collaborative action, and then the leadership, yeah, the facilitative leadership, it is very important also, and the process, of course, yeah. Part of the process that is most, for me, in my experience, part of the process that is most crucial is the trust building. If we can build the trust among the stakeholders, then the next steps, the next process can be easier than if trust is not there at the beginning. So this is a challenge for us. Next. Sometimes the process is non-linear, yeah. So we need face-to-face dialogue. Building trust is, of course, I mentioned earlier. And then part of the process that is also important is shared commitment. Yeah, commitment need to be stated together. Of course, this also on the shared understanding, and we agree on what are the intermediate outcomes as well as the eventual outcome as well. Next. Simpler model of collaborative governments. I like it better than the before one, and this is the one that is followed by the city of Jakarta. Is the so-called evolution of city. Not Jakarta is aiming at being a city 4.0, where a city of collaborators. Yeah. Here in the state of 4.0, citizens are co-creators of the city, whereas previously in the city 1.0, citizens are considered only as residents. Yeah, of course they have to be served. They have to be their right to be protected and all the same. And then in the city 2.0, citizens are treated as consumers. Like in the business, consumers are king. That's why they have to be served better. And then in City 3.0, citizens are participants, yeah, and involved in the process. But in the 4.0, they are part of the co-creators, not only the subject, not only the object, but also the actors themselves. As for the government, in the City 1.0, government was the administrator. And then in 2.0, service provider. And then in 3.0, facilitators. And the final stage is collaborator, as acting as collaborator. Interaction from socialization or informing, yeah, maybe the term informing is more normal than socialization, because socialization is Indonesian terms of giving information. And then consultation, participations, and collaborations. Approach, also in the City 1.0, business as usual, and then City 2.0, technology driven, and 3.0, user-centered approach and technology-enabled procedures. And in the 4.0, open and user-driven approaches, processes, and operational transformations. Later on, Lita will share with us how it is implemented through Jaki. Yeah. Jaki is the super app that the government of Jakarta already developed and used as a means for communications or on sort of things and leading toward actions. Next. Yeah, this is basically the combination between collaboratives, participations, and the use of technology. Because in smart governance itself, we cannot assume that only by using technology, that's fine. That's already we are already smart, yeah. But lessons have given us information, feedback, the insight that the role of participations, people participation, even in the technology-driven processes of governance, is very, very important. Yeah. So here, three crucial characteristics. Yeah. It needs to have great commitment, of course. This refers to the extent to which local government is motivated to engage in sustainable development through ICT-supported urban collaboration. It needs to be responsive. A long-standing relationship between government and citizens require governments to become receptive partners toward inhabitants and citizens. Yeah. The government needs to be responsive toward what the citizens need, but the citizens also needs to be responsive toward whatever other citizens also needs, and also as a whole the public needs. Yeah. It also needs to have a good operational management. The operational basis to equip technology-supported collaborative governance arrangement with whatever is needed for their running and cover all facilitate types of measures, actions, and preconditions. Next. Here are the components of participations. Interactive participations degree, citizen representativeness, and participations motives. Yeah, it's important to have these three components to be given attention to. And but this is not to be mistaken with the ladder of participations that are common promoted by Einstein, where we have the level of or degree of participations, basically from very even manipulative participations up to really people controlled participations. Okay, next, Lita. The use of ICT, basically it's we are already in it. We are already in the world where we use technology in most cases, And the 2 years of pandemic have accelerated the use of technology. Yeah? Like now we are having this training through Zooms, for example. So use of technology can be in terms of web portals, data analytics, yeah, the machine learning, social media, urban sensing, online discussions, and smartphone applications, and many others. Okay, for the good practices, I would like to ask Lita, my assistant, to share with you a few good practices from Indonesia. Lita, the screen is yours, Lita.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Thank you, Pak Wicak, for giving brief remarks regarding the concept and theory about the collaborative and smart governance. Now we're moving on to see how we put it in practice, especially learning from Indonesian cities. The first one is Jakarta. So as Pak Wicak mentioned earlier, that the government of DKI Jakarta already implemented the concept of City 4.0, where they put the citizen as the co-creator of the city development. So here it is also translated in the digital context through Jakarta Smart City ecosystem. So they built the smart city ecosystem to reach not only the digital natives, but also to improve public service delivery more efficiently. The ecosystem also pursue the collaborative approach in the sense that they encourage citizen participation through digital platforms such as through complaint handling mechanism, and also to and many other features that are targeted to engage more and more citizens of Jakarta in the development of the city. They use it through Jaki app. Jaki is Jakarta Kini, a super app for every daily need of the people in Jakarta. So basically, they want to create a whole ecosystem through this app that is essential for the every needs of the people in the Jakarta. It also provides citizen participation mechanism. It also provides information regarding the taxes, regarding the traffic, weather, the air pollution, air quality, and many others. So basically, the app also wants to raise awareness of the people in the Jakarta, so that they they care more about the environment. Next one is from the Makassar. The Makassar provide develop Sombere smart city concept also to improve the public service delivery. One of the features that is highlighted in the Sombere smart city concept is the healthcare telemedicine services, or Dotorota in their local language. The services provide digital and physical healthcare for those in need. For example, if you are sick, and then you can use the healthcare telemedicine services, and the doctor will contact you using teleconference or phone, and the doctor will provide recommendations whether you need to be hospitalized or to be transported into the nearest healthcare facilities. So it's basically bringing the service closer to the people by encouraging collaborative approach with the doctors, the hospitals, and other healthcare facilities. Next one we can learn is from Sragen. Also, the application, they also made the application to for the civil registration services. So, for example, you have to make birth certificate, death certificates, or family registration. You can use the 3 apps that are available, so that they can access it without having to go to the office and do it in a conventional manner. So they use digital platform to improve their civil registration services. The next one, also coming from the east of Indonesia, Ambon. They provide Ambon access, or they develop Ambon access for the people in Ambon, also for the tourists, to get information about Ambon in general. So they provide features that will be useful for the user regarding the Ambon city. And this also supports the brand of the city branding of Ambon as a world music city. Next one is from Binjai. They provide, they facilitate a complaint handling mechanism through digital platform. This is also in line with the spirit of the collaborative and smart governance. They develop the e-masyarakat so that people can send reports and complaints online, and it will be followed up by the government, and they can track it, the response of the government. Challenge. Now we see that all these practices must face several challenges in real life. So there are a number of challenges that we identify. First one is the accountability, because there are so many stakeholders involved. Maintaining accountability of each stakeholders could also be a challenge, because everybody or every stakeholder has their own motives, backgrounds, and interest. So the government, I think, as the most resourceful in this case, must be held accountable to encourage a more meaningful participation. The second challenge that we might encounter is the power imbalance. So as Pak Wicak said earlier, that during the process there could be power imbalance due to different resources that they bring into the discussion. Government, as we can see, that probably have the largest resources, and many others maybe do not have the same amount of resources to participate in the governing process. So it is important to ensure a level playing field, to ensure and leaving no one behind, and their participation could still be achieved. Another challenge emerged is regarding the security and privacy. Of course, this is also related to the advancement of ICT, and while many other cities already adopt the smart city concept, it also needs to pay. They also need to pay attention to the high-profile data security and privacy. We recently had news that there are data breach, so that our private data can be sold all over the internet. So this has to be like serious concern for the stakeholders, so that those who participate could feel secure that their data will not be sold or in wrong hands. We also find a challenge regarding the digital literacy, because we see that people has unequal level of digital literacy, because some probably the millennials were already familiar with the technology, while many others have not been in touch with technology. So there is this digital gap, in the sense that knowledge of accessing ICT-based service delivery could also potentially reinforcing the inequalities amongst the citizens. Those who have access or information to ICT technology may have better access to public service, while those who don't have probably they could not access the public service as easy as the digital natives. So remarks, we see that collaborative and smart governance are an emerging trend, but we think that it should not only be able to invite stakeholders, but more importantly, it should be a concrete ways of improving the lives of the people. So we should also not only focus on the process of participatory process, but we should also ensure that the outputs or the outcomes should improve the lives of the people. Next one, ICT also brings significant impact. We see that in many places that everybody is, or every city develop their own smart city concept. And it also impacted the whole bureaucratic process. Hopefully, it will also improve the public service delivery and the coverage and outreach of the government services. So it should reach more and more people, especially those the vulnerable communities. We also learned that there are so many good examples, not only from Indonesia, but I think from all over the world, on how collaborative governance can help the citizen to be empowered and take part in the decision-making processes. There are a number of way forward. I think this is already only a suggestions for the local government to start the collaborative and smart governance approach. Among others are, the first one, we can start with identifying programs or actions. As Pak Wicak said, we can start small with actions that use the collaborative and smart governance approach. And then during the process, we can invite the relevant stakeholders and encourage them to participate. The next one, we can utilize digital technology also during the process to improve efficiency and effectiveness of the program delivery and program planning also. The next one, the next step is to build consensual goal and also to develop mutual trust. As Pak Wicak said, these are the most important things to implement collaborative and smart governance approach, because without shared goal and trust amongst participants, I think it will be quite difficult and challenging to implement the output of the whole process. And the last one probably is to encourage shared commitment to implement and monitor the program. So this is to engage more stakeholders, not only in the planning process, but also in the implementation and evaluation process, so that they can monitor the whole the output of the process in the collaborative and smart governance. I think that's all. These are the reference that we use for this presentation. Back to you, Pak Wicak.
Thank you, Lita. Yeah, so I just want to, in closing, I just wanted to emphasize that collaborative government is unavoidable. We have to go to that direction, and smart governance also unavoidable. So combinations between collaborative and smarts are unavoidable and important for us to make us the government meeting the needs of the citizens. So we open for discussions. I'm back to you, Bayu.
Thank you, Mr. Wicak and Ms. Lita, for good presentations. We get the idea of how smart governance and can be effective and efficient to help our urban development. For this first session for discussion, I will ask open for 3 questions from the participants. You may click the raise hand icon in your Zoom, or you may type your question in the chat box. Please, if you want, if you do have any question to either Mr. Wicak and or Ms. Lita, you may do that. While waiting for you to ask the question, I will try to summarize some of the points of Mr. Wicak presentation. There are 5 points that I can get. First is collaborative and smart governance give more efficient and effective ways to empowering urban citizens, especially in the decision-making process. And they are also able to dealing with non-linearity of development, because we know that development is not just one A, B, C, D to G, but now it can be jumping from A to D to F and so on. And we also understand that the need for considering urban citizens not just as residents, but also as co-creators of the urban. And then the good use of technology is the key. I listen from the Jakarta, they develop their own super apps, because Jakarta already more bigger than other cities in Indonesia, while other cities trying to deal with their own sectoral problem by using the apps. While the other is the last thing that I will able to get is that digital gap is still a challenges in Indonesia. The younger one already get the idea, but the more elderly probably have difficulties to deal with the changing of this lifestyle. So please, if anyone have a question to Mr. Wicak or Ms. Lita, you may ask your question. Okay, there are first question for I don't know, Mr. or Miss Siva Prasad Amatya. Apologize if I am pronouncing your name incorrectly. The first question is, what is the effectiveness of Jaki app? How many citizens use this app in percentage? Ms. Lita or Pak Wicak, do you have any ideas about how the performance of the Jaki application itself?
Maybe Lita have the number, but we in the past 2 years, Ruang Waktu and collaborations with Hukum Online work with Jakarta Smart City in trying to basically humanize the smart city technology by organizing multi-stakeholder dialogues every month. So from those processes, we learned that in the beginning, actually not very. I think it was before the pandemic. It was just a few 100,000 people actually know and use Jaki out of 11 million of population of Jakarta. But during the pandemic, the user of Jaki increased considerably. We got the report, it was like 1.2 million people users of Jaki. This is the number that I remember. Maybe Lita has a better or more accurate number. Lita?
Yeah, wait, I'm still searching the exact number, but as Pak Wicak said earlier, but due to pandemic, the utilization of Jaki, I think it's accelerated because so many services are offered in Jaki. For example, like vaccination service, you can register yourself to get a jab using Jaki. And also, I think for the social assistance, you can use Jaki to check whether you are eligible or not to get the social assistance programs in the past pandemic. The exact number, let me search it and I will come back to you. But regarding also the effectiveness of Jaki, I think the numbers are quite high because 90% of the or more than 90% of the complaints were handled and response. Yeah, within I think the response rate is around below 30 minutes. So I think it's quite a remarkable achievement for Jakarta. So for example, if you submit, there is a a hole in the road, so you will get a response within in under 30 minutes. So they guarantee that the response will be in under 30 minutes, and the whole process, the resolution of the your problem, it will probably take less than 1 or 2 days. So I think it's quite, it's a really fast response using technology, so it can help also the people to participate actively in reporting their the urban challenges that they face in their daily lives.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Wicak and Ms. Nilita. Mr. Siva, I hope they are able to answer your question.
Actually, could you give me 1-2 minutes? Then I want to explain something about the same app in Nepal also. We have a central government in Nepal. We have a Nagrik app. The name of that app is Nagrik app. That is for the citizens, like as I think that is a Zaki app, because I couldn't see the Zaki app yet. But in Nepal, in the context of Nepal, our government, central government, made one app that is the Nagrik app. There, inside that app, we have application. We have a citizen's paper there. We have a passport photo over there. We have a lot of government papers. The government included in that app. But when we go to the government office to do some work, we forget to bring the physical documents. And when I saw I have a citizenship like that in Nagrik, this is the government app. This is not my own app. This is not a private app. This is a government app. The central government publishes the app. When I saw that app to and the paper to the government in Nepal, but the government's staff do not accept it. You have to bring the physical one. But this is the problem. Still the government, put all these documents of the citizens in the app. That is the authorized app of the government. When I forget to bring some documents, then when I saw this through the app to the document, the government's people don't accept. So this kind of the problem is happening in your Indonesia or not? Could you explain more about it?
Yeah.
So Mr. Siva, yeah.
Yeah,
Please, Pak Wicak. Mr. Siva asked about how the digital version able to replace the more conventional system in Indonesia by paper-based. Please, Pak Wicak.
My personal experience using this digital-based services, at the beginning, what Mr. Siva Prasad Amatya mentions, we experienced a similar experience where the hard copies of documents were still needed. But later on, I think more and more those hard copies are not needed anymore because they are already there in the digital form. Yeah. So I think what you experience currently, I think it's a process, part of the process that we also experience, and also I guess in many parts of Indonesia, not outside Jakarta, people are still experience the same. That aside from all the documentations that are there in the digital form, people still have to submit the hard copies. This is something that is still, I would say, this is part of the transitional phase of the process of being digitalized. So it's part of the process, I think.
I think this is the lack of the awareness in the government staffs, because the central, this is the app is made by the government and is published and is collected all the of the citizens he included in the app. So, but the government, staffs should be aware to watch the app, because maybe I have not hard copy. Maybe I'm in a hurry to get some work from the government. At that time, the government should have that with me, because that app is for the citizens, not for the private apps. So I'm always in a fight with the government, I mean, institutions. Do not you accept this app?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Siva.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, Pak Wicak. We understand that transition phase is very difficult, and we have to deal with it. But hopefully, it will get better in the next future. Moving on, we have two participants ask a question. We will ask a question. First is from Mr. Nurrahman Wijaya, an old colleague of mine from Bandung. And second one is Mr. Muhammad Nur Hadi from Bintari Foundation in Semarang. Mr. Nurrahman, you may asking first and then followed by Mr. Muhammad Nur Hadi. Please, Mr. Nurrahman.
Thank you, Pak Bayu, for your introduction, and I'd like to say thanks for Pak Wicak and Bu Nurul, yeah, for your interesting presentation regarding what is collaborative governance and also a smart governance. Yeah, in the concept is look interesting, but the concept of collaborative governance is not new. And then in this context, you just put the new concept about the smart. So my question is, you may know that there are many concept of smart governance or smart city and so on. Do you think smart governance will build the collaborative, or we should have a collaborative governance to build a smart? So this is my question. And the second, you mentioned also some criteria regarding the collaborative and smart governance. Yeah, I agree also with Pak Wicak that in one of the criteria that initiated by the government, but this is quite difficult in the context of Indonesia. Mostly, yeah, if we say it is a bottom-up approach, it will be much more implemented to do this concept. So do you think which one is better, like in this concept, bottom-up or top-down concept, or both, or combination of this approach? And regarding the typical government, I want to know from Pak Wicak, as we know that in Indonesia, we have many type of cities, like big cities, medium, and small cities. Maybe Bu Nurul also can explain from practice in some cities. Do you think there is any typical government that we can build this collaborative governance? That I see, yeah, some maybe good or implemented in big cities that they have capital, human resource, and etc. So how about the medium and small city that have limited resources? And for Bu Nurul, it's nice that you explain some practices in the case in Indonesia, but I'm not sure about the replicability to other place, and also the sustainability in the future, like in financial, human resource. Mostly the project or the program is based on the time constraint. So do you have any idea of this regarding the, because you mentioned mostly about the application. Sometimes application doesn't work after the bureaucrat or the leader is changed. So I think that's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Nurrahman. We have 4 questions from you, and probably I will ask Mr. Muhammad Nur Hadi to ask his question, so we can gather all the questions first. Please, Mr. May I call you Mr. Inu, as you usually called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Pak
Please.
Bayu, and thank you, Pak Wicak, for the opportunity. Refer back to your presentation. You mentioned that it is important. There is imbalance in power that may create a problem, and I concerned about that, especially if we look at the stakeholders, it seems that the government is much more powerful than other stakeholders. And just give you a context, I'm living in Semarang in Central Java. I found that many or several apps being developed is initiated by the government and then of course supported by company in establishing the apps. And it seems the app is just designed to make their work easy. So for example, in the context of waste management, they want to monitor the waste recovery from waste bank or TPS3R and report it to them via online. But because it is designed only from their own purpose, it sometimes that it doesn't give advantage for the waste bank or for the TPS3R. So then finally it failed to perform after a few months, for example. So and I believe this unsuccessful cases are a lot. So what we can learn from this unsuccessful failures, Pak? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Inu, Pak Wicak, and Ms. Dita. We are waiting for your response related to Mr. Nur Rahman and Mr. Inung concern and questions.
I will try to, thank you, Bayu. I'll try to respond as far as I can. But the last one from Nur Hadi was breaking up, yes. I could not really, maybe my internet connection is not very good. Maybe Lita can help. But I will start with the questions earlier by Mr. Nur Rahman. Yes, that collaborative government as well as smart government in the sense of using technology is, both of them are nothing new. What is new is the digital technology itself. So the question that which one should start first, smart will strengthen the collaboration, and collaborations will then develop a more smart approach, something like that. I think it's almost like a chicken and eggs. You can start by each of these two, build the collaboration first, and then apply to the use technology, or use technology to promote collaborations. Both of this approach, I think, is quite valid, and I've seen cases with both approaches. Yeah, and then in terms of whether bottom up is better than top down or the other way around, I think eventually in the successful, if we learn from successful cases, most of the successful cases are a combinations of both bottom up and top down. Of course, as I think you mentioned earlier, that in terms of sustainability, it also depends on leadership. Yeah. But if it becomes systemized, has become a system, then the dependence on leaderships has become less and less. Yeah? But again, a combination between bottom up and top down, or top down and bottom up, I think is a best option than just one way. To big cities, small cities, in terms of which one is better in developing collaborative government, I think while big cities have bigger resources, tend to have bigger resources, they tend to be more heterogeneous in terms of population, and it's more difficult and more complex to develop collaborations. And because trust will be more difficult to build in a big city, bigger cities, yeah. Whereas in smaller cities, where collegiality and solidarity and all those things still there, social capitals are strong, I think it is easier to build collaborative government, but of course resources tend to be very limited. If we talk about financial or resources or access to technology, tend to be limited, but social capital can also be seen as resources. And if that is the case, then actually they are not very limited when their social capital is big. So this, in terms of replicability, maybe Lita can answer later on. Pak Nur Hadi, I'm sorry, I could not really get, because when you raised the questions, my internet was breaking up. But yes, there were cases, unsuccessful cases, related to imbalanced power relations among stakeholders. It is important that when we have situations where, or actually this is almost in most cases where powers are imbalanced, it is understanding among stakeholders are important to become the bridge between those who have more power than those who have less power, or those who are more powerful and those who are powerless. I think understanding, empathy, helping each other, social capital, still very, very important. Although we are talking about smart government, which is technology. Technology itself will not build smart capital, but it can facilitate the building and the development of smart capital. Rita?
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Wicak. Just I want to add a few more comments regarding our discussions early on. So regarding the city app sustainability and future resources, I think it's important that to ensure the sustainability of whatever apps that the city has, we have to have like shared commitments and also shared responsibilities in the beginning. So regardless the changing political regime, the app or the ecosystem, the smart city ecosystems will still be in place, because we see that also learning from Jackie, they also build partnerships with other stakeholders, such as the private sectors like startups like Grab, Gojek, and many others startups, and they also develop a stakeholders forum to get aspirations from the community. So they want to ensure that all participants were acknowledged in the smart city ecosystem. So I think that's one key element to ensure the sustainability of the city apps, and this also address the issue with the limited resources that Pak Wicak mentioned earlier, because while I think Jakarta is quite resourceful in terms of funding, because they have a lot of money to spend and to build the whole ecosystem, but in most cases where the budgets are limited, I think we can also encourage or implement the collaborative governance, in the sense that we invite other stakeholders to share their resources to build the ecosystem, the smart city ecosystem. While for the replicability, I think Jackie, it's the most advanced program or applications, the government applications right now in Indonesia, because they provide open source app API, so that many other local governments that want to use their templates or the backbones of the applications, they will share the API, and the city can modify and add the features as they like. So they provide the open sources for different stakeholders to modify and also to add more features. for example, the city needs features in tax collection, so they can add the tax feature in the app. And I think it's one of the most like not to be exaggerating, but I think it's revolutionary. But in a way that they provide, I think it's a space for the collaborative and digital governance that takes place in the whole digital ecosystem. So what we can learn from Jaki, I think, is the ease of use and ease of replicability. I think that's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Lita and Mr. Wicak. I hope Mr. Wicak and Ms. Lita able to answer your question, Mr. Nur Rahman and Mr. Inu. We still have 7 minutes time left, and there is one question from the participant in the chat box from Ms. Nadika Amarasinghe. Her question is, how you ensure the access to use this type of apps in general public? Do they have necessary infrastructure like internet, mobile, and etc.? Please, Pak Wicak and Ms. Lita, we understand that Jakarta already got their good coverage, but how about the other city in Indonesia, probably that do not have some quality of infrastructure, and especially also income for the people?
Yeah, this is of course a challenge. For Jakarta, it's not so much a problem because I think coverage as well access to digital information and to mobile devices and Wi-Fi and all those things are there even in the most crowded kampungs. I've seen people using smartphones and all those things. Yeah, but outside Jakarta, of course, there are challenges. But during the pandemic, I think with the introductions of remote learnings, the central government, the national governments has speed up this access to digital world and even provide some kind of facilities for poor people to be able to access to learn from through this remote learning processes. Yeah, I think with that, then it can be bridged. The gap can be bridged. Of course, I cannot say that it's all equal now. It's not there yet. Even if I go to remote Kalimantan, East Kalimantan, where I can where recently I visited a number of times, I still could see areas where internet is not available and people still don't have access to smartphones and all those things. Yeah, not to mention more remote areas in Maluku or Papua or other places. Yeah, so I think digital gaps are still there, but the pandemic, the 2 years pandemic, has speed up and close the gap. Yeah, I would say that I don't have any studies or informations. Maybe Lita can share if she has, but I haven't seen any study. This is my opinion that the government, because of the introductions of the remote learning, then there is this efforts by the government to speed up the accelerations of giving access to people who used to be find it difficult to access digital world. Lita?
Yeah, of course. In terms of accessing digital public services, we have to have like necessary infrastructure like internet, mobile, but we see that not everyone is privileged with this infrastructure because, as Pak Wicak mentioned, in many places, the use of internet and mobile is really limited, and not everyone can afford the internet and also the mobile phone. But their voice still matters, in the sense that collaborative governance should also not only heavily rely on the digital ecosystem, but the collaborative governance should also target and focus those vulnerable communities, those marginalized communities. I think in many creative ways, we can set up like public gatherings in the neighborhood level, so that it can facilitate face-to-face interaction. Also, for example, in kampungs, or in for example, slum areas, they can still be actively participate in different channels or mechanism, or the government can also visit their neighborhood to collect their aspirations. So I think digital world is one thing, but there are so many options or alternatives that can be used to enhance or to ensure the public service delivery.
Thank you, Ms. Tita and Mr. Wicak. From their experience, we understand that in Indonesia, there are still a digital gap. However, the pandemic in the last 2 years actually forcing all the people in Indonesia to adapt with more digital technology. We are now at 10:30 in Indonesia time, and we are in the end of our discussion session. Thank you for Mr. Wicaksono Sarosa and Ms. Nurulita Andini Susityo. Applause for them, please. And thank you again for today discussion and presentation from both of you. It's very, very interesting about what happened in Indonesia related to the smart and collaborative governance. After this, we will have a next session with Mr. Pauli Mora and Mr. Chris De General. Thank you for all participants, and also we have a message from the committee that we want all the participants able to turn on their camera during this workshop. If you don't have any problem, please turning on your camera so we're able to see you during this workshop. The committee also send their link for the attendance, so please fill this link. And again, Mr. Pauli and Mr. Chris, are you ready for the next session?
Morning, yes, we are ready. Let me just share our screen.
Okay.
Our end.
Yes, just few seconds. Let me introduce both of you first to the participant. Okay. Ms. Jessica, could you help me? Yes. Mr. Pauli Mora and Mr. Chris De General, both of them from CityNet. Mr. Pauli is prior working to CityNet. He spent 10 years working in national and local government association based in Manila in Philippines. He held various supervisory positions in both regular and foreign assistance programs and projects that focus on urban development. While Mr. Chris De General is a program officer at the CityNet, Mr. Chris manages the Urban SDG Knowledge Platform, a joint project with ESCAP and the Seoul Metropolitan Government. Without further ado, please, Mr. Pauli and Mr. Chris, give your best presentation for all the participants today. The screen and time are yours.